Hello, everyone. This is Janet from Wimbledon, Southwest London. It's me again. I've told you that I talk about skin, hair, nails in a cost-effective way. I also talk about social issues, anything. My last video was talking about hair and fasting and other things, and I talk about so many different things. But I really have to talk about something that's been on YouTube and last week. I didn't even realize until yesterday. I didn't realize, and I think I said made a comment that somebody found offensive. It's about child free and childlessness and things like that. Okay, I just want to say that everybody who don't have kids, that does not mean that we're all infertile, and everybody who is infertile does not mean that we're blaming you. The problem I have about this is that they're trying to make it the involuntary childlessness, like you're better than the people who are child free. Well, you don't know if you're child free. So I put something like that, not in that way, but like there are people who are just child free. There's no, and somebody said, "Oh, some of us don't have a choice." And I said to me, "Look, it's not a question of choice. I'm child free, but throughout my career and my college and studies, I helped take on my niece and my nephew. Okay, my nieces and my nephew, and only two people in the family have kids. Not that there's nothing wrong with us. One of my relatives, she was with her first husband who didn't want kids. They spent 20 years together. When they separated, she had a child in her 40s. Okay, so I've been watching some of this trending Zoom stuff. So I did, put something that, some of us doesn't mean there's something wrong with us. Some of us just try to say that it's really not compulsory to have a kid. And when this person said, "Oh, some of us don't have the choice," I did take a like. I didn't want to get into, but I'm hoping to get back into that same thing to say nobody said you had a choice or you didn't have a choice. I'm personally saying today that, okay, from the old days to this day, you are yourself, you are your own body, you own your own body. Okay, and I feel that there is a link between promiscuity and marriage. There are some of us who basically went to an all girls boarding school, and even though we're not Catholics, but we were taught to, close our legs and things like that. But that's just not that. The point is, okay, when you do all these things happen. Life happens, society happens, you get to college, you get to university, and then you try to get a job, and you're the only thing you can do is find a place of your own. It's really unheard of to go and move in with a boyfriend or something like that. Okay, so two people in my family had kids. One had kids in her 40s when our parents had already passed. So at first I never really thought about it, but as a child I did imagine what would be. But when life got in the way, like all the things I've mentioned before, it wasn't so much that some child free people did not want to have kids. It's just that the opportunity just did not arise. So I'm gonna definitely say that I am child free. Um, it's not out of infertility. One of my relatives just had a child in her 40s, and also, it's also not necessarily by choice. It's like one quarter choice. It's more like I just went with the flow. And, I met somebody age 19, but we were moving. So I would never have been ready for marriage age 19, you know. And I already feel like, unlike what God rest his soul, Kevin Samuel says, that it's got nothing to do with love. You need to go and find somebody who's going to do this. Well, you see, the thing is that women, we're not children. We're not necessarily looking for somebody to look after us. We're not babies, because there is no such thing as, you know, there is no such thing as somebody looking after you. There's really no such thing as that. Nobody actually is going to look after you. It's just the norm, society's norm, whether you get into business, whether you get a job. And our own thing is just basically fighting to get a place of your own. And part by part rent in England did not work for me, but I was very, very lucky that I got a home that is low cost housing, because I was a joint tenant with one of my relatives after I and my sisters were living together and before we all moved into our various place. So I was very, very lucky that I'm in a suburb on the outskirts of Wimbledon, but at least I was still able to get low cost housing. Okay, I don't have 10 children or anything, but my sister and my nephew were in my home for a whole year before they found their own place. So I found a lot of happiness, and I found out that my parents basically had properties in London and abroad. but they had to downsize for expenses and so on. And when you get to a pensioner age, you don't make the money we're making, even though my father had his own engineering firm and he has other relatives abroad and basically other family members because they were separated and so on. But I remember my mother saying, we may have downsized, but she's happy with her now smaller place. And now my parents have passed. They passed in 2015 and 2016. And that was very difficult for the family. And then basically trying to get back into employment. And at that time, before they passed, I was moving into this place. So settling into this place, clearing up my mother's place, so many things were happening. A couple of years later, you had COVID, you know. But I was really never in a hurry. I just basically wanted to live my life my way. So all those people who keep saying, we didn't have a choice and so on, I really want you to say, I'm not gonna be patronizing and say, you should have adopted. I'm not gonna do that. It's just yesterday on Sunday here in London, we listened to LBC. It's a popular radio show in London. You can do it on Global Period and online. And Singista Maiska, I have to thank her for bringing this stuff up. And, somebody who is British but from a South Asian background, she just felt that the shame that she felt having to explain herself and things. But you know what? It wasn't like that in my family. Even my brothers-in-law and all that, they don't question. Everybody's in their own home, have their own careers. Everybody minds their own business. Even one of my relatives, when his mother died, he didn't want any family disputes or whatever, he didn't go for the funeral. It's very difficult to be a British person from an ethnic background. Sometimes there is just a lot of stuff, that is going on and so on. So it depends on the stuff, it depends on what's going on. And to me, I do feel geography, life, money, housing, everything comes into place. And sometimes basically, it's not that people are choosing. Sometimes you fall in love with the wrong person. And I remember that woman, I can't remember her name, but she was on YouTube and she was talking about white privilege and all that. I would have, do you know what? If she ever gets this video, she was saying that she's in her 30s and she doesn't have a husband or something like that. And I just want people to know that women are not raised to please a man. Women today are paying their bills. And don't get me wrong, I am not against marriage. I'm not against marriage and I'm not against anything like that. I am just saying that women wake up, they go to school, they go to college, they go into either acting or they work with the government or anything like that, or either the entertainment industry, and they just go with the flow. And they usually meet somebody that they've worked with, and sometimes it doesn't work. Another thing is that there just isn't a good enough example out there. In my area, I see people take the children to the nursery or the after school club and things like that. And both parents are taking turns. But when I really look out for my former office or other people and so on, majority of the people I know are separated. So sometimes I would really think that this is about childlessness, but I think that there is a link with not having a husband, which is wrong. There are some people who do have a husband and they are child free. But the important thing about this story is that yesterday they talked about men who couldn't have children. And I'm sorry, I find it really offensive when people say it's involuntary because, because of a medical record, maybe they should have stored their sperm or stored their eggs. And so I really do feel for the women. But please, can we just stop calling it voluntary or involuntary? Because I'm not voluntary and I'm not involuntary. Okay, it's just the way life worked out. It's just the way things worked out. I'm in my 40s. My sister had a kid in her 40s. If I wanted to have a child now, I would have a child now. But I don't think that it would be in the child's best interest. I mean, I would do stuff, breakfast club, after school club or whatever. But I need to bring my child into a safe environment. With my family, we're quite safe. But at the end of the day, I would really want, her father involved. So what if this man turns out to be a narcissistic psychopath or something like that? I don't think it would be fair on the child. So sometimes when people don't have children, like another woman said, it was due, was it Jody Day? Yeah, it was due to the kind of childhood that she had. And when she changed her mind, it didn't work out. So please, let's come together as one, whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, we are all child free. and your child feel maybe because of this and because of that. But I found it really offensive where people have started saying involuntary childlessness. Look, I'm sorry, that looks like you're feeling ashamed or you feel like you have to explain yourself to people, and that's really wrong. That's really, really wrong. And a woman called a writer a misogynist, and it moved to so many things. I never noticed, really in my place of work, I never really noticed that people who didn't have kids were given more work and so on. It's not fair. And if you complained, it was like you were against children. You chose to have children, make your arrangements and so on. Throughout the summer, my sister did not get a holiday except for 1 week, and guess who was looking after her son? Me, because I had a career break and had a little holiday and so on. So we can come together and cooperate with each other. And I'm definitely telling you this. I never felt any kind of shame or anything. I think in the extended family, it was more of if you had a husband. Nobody asked whether you had a child or not. But the thing is that I'm very, very lucky that my extended family, both for my mother and father side, are far off. They're in another country. They're in the United States. Some are in Africa, some are whatever. But I do have my maternal cousins here. He has a wonderful wife. They have 3 children. They've never interrogated us on anything like that. And I've always been out with my sister and a friend who has 2 other kids, and it's never bothered me that I'm around the kids. Of course, I don't do the outings with them all the time. It's just something that people just really don't think about. I think that life is really hard, and life is so hard already for you to start labeling people. But I'm glad that this have come out for everybody who has felt maybe shame or felt bad that you don't have children. I basically do not feel bad. If I wanted to have we're fertile in my family. My relative had fibroid, and after 20 years she still gave birth. So basically I didn't feel that at all. And I'm sorry I am a mess. I just thought I had to do a video about this. you know, child free, childless, voluntary, involuntary. Please don't divide us, okay? We're all a whole group of people who don't have children. Don't try to say, oh, I'm better than the child free one because I didn't have a choice or something. There could be social, economic reasons why the child free people did not have a child. Okay, maybe they don't sleep around, maybe they don't get to meet people that much, maybe they're being careful, and maybe they just didn't find the right people. I basically have not really I've never had a casual fling. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I've never had a casual fling. I don't believe in casual flings. If I like somebody, I go for the key. Where are we going in this relationship? And I don't sleep around, and I've never slept around as well, you know. So I never ever say that, oh, in my 20s I should have done this and this. Now, I was both studying and working in my 20s and just trying to do something with my life to be able to pay my own bills. And I'm really proud of myself. To me, I'm not one of those Stepford wives that, feel that it was the most important thing. It wasn't the most important thing. We have children in my family and we love them, but it's not really the most important thing that all of us have to do. So if you're at home now and I know what you're saying, you just have to complain in the office if the work is too much. You have to tell them, look, even if you're not doing it, just say, I look after my parents, I look after my niece and nephew, I'm looking after my grandparents. I also need time off. And this is the flexible hours I need, especially if you work with the government in England. You can get flexible hours. You don't have to say the reason. So you don't have to feel left out and feel that, oh, because you don't have a child that you're doing everything. It doesn't work that way now. They would have to allocate it and speak out. And you're not against people basically who have children and so on. Okay, so there is more to life than having children. You can meet up in your community. There are things going on in the community, and you can look at everybody's example. Majority of the people who have children are having a hard time. I know that. And I'm not saying having children is a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's really not as cropped up as you think, and everybody says this. In fact, I was talking to an acquaintance of mine, and she said that somebody in her office said, you were so lucky you don't have children. I went on holiday with my children, and it was so stressful. I know that. I spent a whole summer, and I have flexible working hours in the office. So at times I had taken my niece and nephew to school. Now sometimes I still take my nephew to school. And you're carrying their scooter, their bag, and everything. And especially if they have a tantrum or something like that, it really isn't easy. And you have to have that patience So sometimes maybe it's just nice being a lovely auntie. And I'm sorry that this happened to you, and I'm not going to tell you to adopt. It may not have been something, but I do believe that we should be all child free week and stop feeling pressure that, oh, you have to have kids in your 30 and may end up making the mistake. Look at this woman that had died. She married a pilot, and he killed her. All the warning signals that he had been narcissistic, he'd been trying to control her. So you need to be really very careful and thank God for your life and be grateful for your life. And that's that. And that does not mean that we don't understand the fact that you've always wanted kids. You know, I'm not going to say you can always adopt, but you could be kind to other kids. And that doesn't mean that the rest of us who are child free are selfish. It's just maybe it just did not happen the way we were meant to happen. Maybe we just didn't fall in love and we were not going to settle. It is in the child's interest that you do not bring a child in because society says you should bring a child in. Let us come together, whether voluntary or involuntary. We are all child free because we don't have kids. It's never been a disease, it's never been an issue. And if it's just the way it happened. I'm happy to say that there are children in my family. Only two people have children in my family, and it's never been a stuff of shame. If you want to be ashamed, especially if you're from a South Asian belt, go to these parties then. But don't go to people who are going to question you about whether you have kids or not. Maybe it's only one or two out of curiosity near my area. And she says, you're lucky. I've told my husband I don't want any more kids. Be blessed. Stay safe. Life is short. Enjoy your life and concentrate on your life and look after your mental health. Whether you're voluntary or involuntary, child free or childlessness, man or woman, we're all in the same boat. We all don't have children, but we make the most of it. Thank you and take care. Bye bye.